Member for Newtown.
Thank you, Speaker. As you would know, 2 weeks ago on May 22nd, I had the privilege of attending an event in Ashfield with around 30 members of the Nurses and Midwives Association who work within the Sydney Local Health District. I was joined, or indeed, Speaker, we were joined by my Greens colleague, the member for Balmain, and indeed yourself as the member for Drummoyne, both of whose electorates make up part of the Sydney Local Health District. While the district also takes in parts of the Labor-held seats of Canterbury, Strathfield and Summerhill electorates, as well as the Sydney electorate, unfortunately not one of the government members were in attendance at that event, and neither was the member for Sydney. This is an incredible shame that there weren't able to be government members there, because the evening was an opportunity to hear firsthand and in great detail about the challenges our nurses and midwives are facing within an overstretched and underfunded health system. Tonight, I want to put on the record, Speaker, some of the stories that we shared with us. That night, we heard how every day countless nurses across the local health district drive home completely shattered, barely able to keep their eyes open behind the wheel. We heard that it is not uncommon for nurses to pull over on the shoulder of the road and sleep in their cars because they know that they are falling asleep at the wheel. One nurse told me that they woke up at the traffic lights having fallen off their motorbike due to sheer exhaustion. We heard how almost every shift nurses are asked to take an overtime choice right then and there when they are due to clock off, and in order to cover staffing shortages, and how they will assess between them who is the most exhausted to be able to figure out which of them will step up to take the additional time to ensure that there are not shortages on the ward. We heard how older, experienced nurses are leaving the profession that they love in droves due to the burnout and exhaustion, and how they are now cautioning younger people against becoming nurses and midwives. With tears in their eyes, they said this. The impact of this exodus on the workforce is as insidious as it is significant. The departure of senior nurses in the profession and midwives will have an impact on not just them and the quality of our healthcare in this state, but also losing this experience amongst more senior nurses means that the new nurses are left floundering with less experience and less options for looking up to older, more experienced nurses and midwives to be able to provide them with the on-the-job mentoring and support required. Without older nurses to take them under the wing, this is a huge stress. And we heard how psychiatric nurses are facing particularly dire conditions as they bear the brunt of this New South Wales Labor government's failure to negotiate with psychiatrists forced out of the public system by their own horrific conditions. Caring for people in acute mental distress is now falling to nurses who are receiving no additional support, are at risk for the lack of safety of their workplaces, while people are being taken in shortage trying to deal with people with extreme mental health conditions. Anyone with even a shed of empathy would agree that these conditions are completely unsustainable. Nurses and midwives are performing essential work to look after our communities and keep our health system afloat, and they are doing so in the most precarious of conditions and for inadequate pay. Last year, I put questions on notice to the Health Minister about the risk of casualisations and vacancies at RPA in the Newtown electorate, and in response we learnt that 10% of nurses and midwives at the hospital are currently employed on temporary contracts. To be completely clear, giving nurses and midwives a 15% pay rise that they are asking for will not alone solve the litany of problems they are facing, but it would go a long way to showing that they are appropriately valued by this New South Wales Labor government and respected, and provide them with some immediate material relief for the otherwise very stressful work that they undertake. The nurses and midwives at the Ashfield event told us that because their wages fall far short of what is needed to be able to pay the rent and afford to live in Sydney, that many of them are taking multiple jobs, jeopardising the level of care that they can provide, because they're not doing this as a fun side hustle. They're doing it because to keep a roof over their heads and their kids' clothes, they cannot afford to live on a nurse's wage. We've spent hours this week debating legislation that would make it basically impossible for nurses to achieve the mental health support they need if they were to suffer psychological injury at work. None of these issues are inevitable, and it is the New South Wales Labor government that is making a choice not to deliver the pay rise that nurses and midwives in this state deserve.
Thank you. I call the Minister in reply.
Hi. Madam Speaker, I just wanted to rise to say the sheer indignation and disgrace from the member for Newtown with respect to accusing me as the member for Canterbury about that event that was organised by the nurses and midwives. I spoke to the Assistant Secretary about why I couldn't attend, but I have attended many events with respect to the nurses and midwives I already explained that, but also we have done more. We have done more for public sector workers. You are a hypocrite. The Greens just come here, no care, no responsibility. No, they don't have to make any choices. They can sit here and rant and rave. And I am sick and tired of hearing the member for Newtown stand here and crow on and on and on again. We came here, we made a commitment, we lifted wages for public sector workers, we lifted wages, we've expanded the commission. Stop being a hypocrite, Jenny, okay? Stop being a hypocrite.
Order. Minister, order. I call the member for Newtown.
I ask that the Minister withdraw her accusation of referring to me as Jenny and a hypocrite. I would ask that she withdraw that. It is clearly unparliamentary language and it's unacceptable in the chamber.
Thank you.
Madam Speaker,
Yes, Minister.
I will call the member for Newtown the member for Newtown.
That's
but
not-
the member for Newtown is a hypocrite,
Order,
and I will say
Minister.
that again and again.
Do you withdraw, yes or no? That was it.
I'm not withdrawing
Thank
that
you.
she's a hypocrite.
Thank you. I call the member for Granville.